What is up, guys? It's Kubi, and I'm going to be bringing you sort of the pilot proof of concept episode for something I'd like to be doing consistently, perhaps on a weekly basis. And that is a show focused entirely on breaking down team fights in Heroes of the Storm, something we really don't have in the community so far, so I thought I'd take a crack at it. You guys can let me know what you think of it after the episode. Tweet at me at the Kubi for some tweaks. I don't really have a lot of production video editing skills, so hopefully developing that as we go forward from here. Now, in terms of a little bit more detail on what I want this show to be is really, again, just breaking down those team fights. So I plan on picking one, maybe two team fights from a particular game that I select, and really diving into those fights, watching them, 5, 6, 7 times to really get perspectives of different players on each side of the fight and look to highlight their goals in the team fight, what they want to accomplish, and how that fits in with the goals of the team. So I want there to be two focuses. One, again, on those particular individual players. So you guys watching can put yourselves in those players' shoes a little bit easier and really kind of figure out how your goals as a player, as a hero, fit in with the rest of your team. And the second perspective that I want to try to pull from is the perspective of the team as a whole. And of course, Heroes of the Storm being a very team fight, it's objective-oriented game. You guys got to be working together, so you need to know what your role is in the team, how it fits in, and what everyone else's roles are, and how they work together to accomplish a single goal. And so hopefully you guys will have those two perspectives at the end of the show, at least for this particular fight. And hopefully that also improves your viewing experience when you're watching competitive Heroes of the Storm, so you can kind of get better at picking out those little details that are really so important, that oftentimes do get missed. And I can say that speaking as a caster, it's not the easiest of things to really be able to highlight every single little detail. So that should help you guys get better at improving your own game from watching competitive Heroes as well. So like I said, I want to try to turn this into a weekly show if things go smoothly. And, with the caveat that I'm not really trying to force content. If there's not a lot of tournaments going on, especially with the holiday season coming up, there may not be. I don't really want to try to force an episode on maybe something where there's not really a whole lot of content to grab from, and I'm really pulling lackluster fights, etc. I really want to try to bring you guys those really cool type of plays that often get missed. So with that said, again, tweet at me at the Kubi. Let me know what you guys think, and let's get right into it. Alright, hopping on into the game itself. Before I even explain at all what has been going on up to this point, I am going to advance to the replay. Anytime that I have watched any kind of analysis show where they're breaking down some kind of fight into great detail, it has always sort of annoyed me to not have the full picture of the fight before actually jumping into some of the analysis. So I'm going to play this for you guys, see if you can catch any of the little details, otherwise just go back and rewind it if you want to. This is during the Enter the Storm North American Qualifier number 5, I believe. This game is between Bob Ross Fan Club and 2Ark with their new roster. This is best of 1 tournament, so a lot is on each individual game to really perform. That said, there is a huge level lead at this point in the game. Bob Ross still, though, advances to sort of take a fort when there is no clear hero advantage. Despite having this level advantage, some might say that that's a disadvantage. I'll let you guys decide if you think it was a good idea for them to go in and take this fight. But you can sort of see the full picture, that there was essentially an initiation from Bob Ross Fan Club to take this keep, a counter-initiate with Sunshine trying to soak up some CC, and the rest of the fight sort of devolves from there. So next we will take a look at 2Ark's perspective and to see some of the motivations for why they took this fight. Okay, so I have advanced back to the beginning of this replay, and we're going to take a look at everything from 2Ark's perspective so we can get a better feel for the decision-making for the team as to why they decided to take this fight to such a degree. A couple things to take note of is that they understand they have a Wombo team, which is, has some potential to initiate, but in this case they know that if they're going to take a fight, especially with this 4, at times a 3-level lead, they know that they're going to have something else on their side, and that being Defender's advantage underneath this keep. So they look to find a position where Bob Ross is going to initiate, and because they can see this Hyperion is going to be moving forward, they're not just going to walk up and throw this Hyperion without the intent to take a serious team fight or try to take some structures out. So they know that in that degree, Bob Ross is going to be committing, and it's going to be in a favorable position for 2R to advance forward. So they know if this fight is going to happen, there's going to be a lot of members of Bobras funneling through this choke point, and that is exactly what they need in order to be able to set up a great wombo combo. So let's take a look at some of the tools they have available to them. Sunshine on Diablo has all of his souls up, so he can move in and really just try to soak some CC from the enemy team. So we're going to say as soon as this fight advances, we're going to see Diablo move in. He's going to take a lot of CC and really just try to isolate one of the squishier members of Bobras fan club. So again, main goal for Sunshine, just soak up the CC so that Trader, when he moves in for his mosh pit, won't get interrupted. Then we're going to see, and you can't see him on the screen just yet, but Clowen's going to move in with Sylvanas with a flank. He's going to come down here and is really going to try to set up a Wailing Arrow in this choke point. When the members are silenced, that does another layer of sort of CC absorption for Trader to set up for a mosh pit. He's going to go in for a sort of a flanked position and also try to move in here to try to catch with a huge mosh pit. And if they can land that, Sunshine, hopefully if he's still alive, can throw down a Lightning Breath. LZ Gamer can throw his Hammering down. You know, he just has a lot of auto attack damage. That's really how he's been building this game. I can also pull up the talents before we advance any further, so you guys can get a better idea of what has been picked up until this point. You know, like I mentioned, Falstad's build is going for that auto attack style, with the exception of Giant Killer. Honestly, probably would have been a better choice, but that aside, that's not really what's hurting them in this type of game. So what we're going to look at next is actually the position for Crowan as we go forward. So like I was saying, Diablo is going to be the one who really ends up soaking up a lot of CC, but the fight really starts when Crowan here moves in with his Wailing Arrow. So we're going to go ahead and advance this a little bit so we can sort of see how the fight sets up position-wise. More members of Bobras fan club are moving forward. Crowan moves in here for this positioning, and we're going to go ahead and pause right now so we can get a better look at this. He sees a lot of members with this Wailing Arrow, so there's a couple goals that Crowan really would like to try to get done with this fight. Obviously, he's going to want to move into this position, and he's going to want to land a huge Wailing Arrow. Silence is very effective in terms of setting up a position for ETC to go into this choke and land a huge mosh pit. Following that, he wants to try to catch somebody who is low in HP and can be taken out. In this case, it's absolutely going to be Zuna. He's already down to half HP, so he's going to move in. He's going to see this position. He's going to try to land a Wailing Arrow, as many people as he can land it onto. Hopefully then back up into this position here and try to throw down some damage from a safe position and really move from there. That's really Crowan's goal at this point. We're going to go ahead and we'll advance this so that we can get a better idea of what actually happens, and then we'll talk about what he could have done a little bit better. So he moves in, lands a Wailing, hits 3 members, sees the target that he wants to take out, which is Jaina, of course. There's a Divine Shield and Ice Block to sort of get in the way. He even throws down a Haunting Wave to go in, just throw it a little bit extra damage, perhaps even to body block a bit. We'll talk about that in a bit. Finds himself now in a crazy position and ends up backing up. So we'll go ahead, we'll back this up and bear with the replay system because it's not the quickest. And we want to get back to that point where he kind of makes that call to move in with the Haunting Wave. We'll advance this one more. Okay, so the Haunting Wave has been thrown out at this point, and this is the thing you have to kind of question. And I'm not sure if we can actually, can we call up his cooldowns? Yeah, you can see Envenom has not been used. If he has the foresight to not throw it onto Zuna because he knows that the target is going to get Divine Shielded, throw it onto McIntyre, throw it onto Arthlon to try to trigger his trait, see if any damage goes that way. But the decision to move down, it really, I think it comes down to he wants to try to burst as much as possible, which is like literally hit every button that you have, use your Haunting Wave. It's not really going to disable anybody, but it does a little bit extra damage, and maybe in an attempt to get back to the rest of his team. He's hoping that Trader has landed a huge mosh pit, which, as you can see, is not the case at this point. But still, you have to be kind of prepared for any outcome from the rest of your team. So if you're Sylvanas in this position, I think you have two choices after you've thrown out this Wailing Arrow. You back up here to throw out a little bit extra damage, and it's safer because then you can Haunting Wave in this direction, and there's almost no way you're going to get caught out of position there. Or you can back up here and throw down some safe damage. And I think I like this one a little bit more because it allows you to position a bit better for the Wailing Arrow, the Withering Fire. So we'll clear this. You know, if he's in this position, right, Withering Fire has a range something like this, and it's going to pick the target that's within that range. And if he tweaks his position just a little bit, he'll be able to make sure that he can isolate Zuna's spot. So I think that would really be the best play. But when it comes down to it, Crowan's position was he needed to land a Wailing Arrow. He hit 3 targets. I think he did a great job with that. Could argue some slight changes to his positioning because really Sylvanas is just meant to be looking to apply some safe DPS and just stay alive in the fight. Land the Wailing Arrow, just stay alive. So some slight tweaks there, but overall was able to land this Wailing Arrow pretty well. And we'll go back to the start of the replay and look at it from Trader's position. Okay, back to the start of the replay. We're going to take a look at it from Trader's position on the ETC. So we can take a look at some of the decision making that he goes through. Obviously he's looking for a flank, but the big thing that you need to take note of is that he needs to have an accounted position for every member of Bob Ross fan club. He can't see where Kenma is and he doesn't know where Zuna is. Zuna's not a huge deal because there's no stun, but Kenma is. If Kenma finds himself here and he's lagging behind just a little bit from his team and Trader tries to move out, he could just get stunned. And the way that this combo works for 2-arc is that everything has to be orchestrated very precisely. So he's basically waiting to see where all 5 members of Bob Ross are so that he can move in and get the successful flank. Now really what's going to be happening is he wants to wait for Sunshine to go in and soak up a lot of CC. He will look to make a flank at this point. We'll advance the replay just a little bit so we can try to set up for this position. Sunshine's looking around and basically just waiting for Zuna to be a little bit out of position, sees it, goes in, gets some CCs, and let's pause right here so that he can take a look at exactly what Trader is thinking. He sees that Arthalon on Raynor here has just used his penetrating round. Kenma is obviously moving in to try and throw out the Hammer of Justice. 2 are the big stuns that he needs to worry about. Isn't quite sure about the piercing bolts or the sledgehammer from Arrow, but the positioning I think is pretty reasonable for him to go in. So what's really going to be happening is he's waiting for those CCs to get thrown down. He's going to move in, land a huge mosh pit, ideally right after the Wailing Arrow gets thrown down so that there's no attempts to jump away from Arrow. McIntyre can't use the spear to get away, etc. Divine Shield can't get thrown down. You're just trying to catch people off guard. And since Arthalon has just used and what he thinks is his only form of CC, he's in a good spot. He's basically given the green light, go ahead, go in, make use of this. Now the big problem is it's this guy down here. There it is, Relentless Leader. If you guys aren't aware of this talent, it doesn't get really picked too often, but it makes a lot of sense here for Arthalon. It's basically Relentless thrown in with a little bit of extra for Raynor, and every 5 seconds he has the ability to knock a hero away if he gets stunned. Only stuns. So that's going to, none of the basically fall stat if he throws down his Hammering, that the slow isn't going to trigger the knockback. It's basically just Diablo and ETC at this point that is going to be able to trigger this ability. And he knows that if Arthalon keeps the position, if he just kind of stays in this back line right here, and he just needs to keep eyes on Trader. If he can keep an eye on him, make sure that he doesn't go in for a flank, then he's going to be fine. So we'll advance this really quick so we can see exactly what happens. Trader moves in. Even with the silence being thrown down, that's an amazing position because there's no crowd control that could be thrown down to knock Trader away. However, this ability will trigger even if you get silenced. So what happens is Trader goes in, he essentially queues up, moves in, queues up the power slide, and then is looking to just try to get this really nice mosh pit. But since he queued up the abilities, you're going to see that he ends up, he triggers it, and he ends up moshing no one. Even Arthalon could have been possibly caught by that. It wouldn't have really been that big of a deal. So Wailing Arrow hits 3 people. Mosh pit at this point hits no one. So that's really unfortunate. I think that the big thing to take away from what Trader could have done better here is to always be keeping an eye on the abilities that have been picked up from the enemy team. Even if you think you sort of have a grasp of what basic kits can do, there's always those little talents that can be picked up here and there. For example, if you think you can catch Sonya out of position and you weren't aware of the Mystical Spear upgrade at 13, that's a lot more mobility that the hero gets that you might not have been aware of based on her base kit. And although it doesn't get picked up very often, always just checking the talents, seeing that those types of things get picked up, because it was very smart for Arthlon to do it in this case. He could have gone for the double shot on his Q, the penetrating round, but that doesn't save him in this case when he's silenced. So this ended up being a brilliant pick from Arthlon. Had Trader noticed it, he could have tried to walk in and proc the ability. Somehow it's kind of difficult, honestly, because even the loudspeakers doesn't quite trigger because it's not a stun, it's just a displacement. So you almost kind of have to like position yourself very peculiarly where you don't hit him with the power slide, but also land the mosh pit. Not the easiest of things to do, but that really is the counterplay at this point, and that's why it's such a smart talent for Arthlon to pick up, because it is so hard to play around. All right, we're going to pick right back up from that point, and we're going to go in, and we're just going to advance the replay just a little bit. Take a look at this. We can see, yes, Rowan's position. He ends up kind of dying for that. They do take out Zuna. And at this point, Diablo he gets taken out. We're looking at a position where it's still kind of a 3v4. I guess if that's, is that fair to say? With Diablo down. Yeah, because this is bugged out. It's actually still a 4v4 with Zuna out. They're still in this. We advance it a little bit. And really I'm trying to set up for LZ Gamer's decision making and a choice that he has to make. Trader ends up falling. Let's pause it right here so we can get a better look at this. Trader can now basically make the decision. He has his Mighty Gust up, which is really what I'm driving to. It's the only heroic left, and it's sort of a fight or flight call that he has to make for his team. Now, I think he's the captain. I'm not sure if he's the shot caller for the team or not, but either way, he is the one that sort of has to make a snap call. Do we disengage this fight, or do we try to punish this, what feels like greedy position? He has a couple of choices. He can move here, throw out a Mighty Gust that really just pushes back Bob Ross. And you also have to remember, after Mighty Gust is used, there's a 60% 5-second decaying slow. That's quite a bit. When you apply the Fort slow as well, you might be in a position to sort of poke them down and convince them to back up. But there really are two options that can come from this. Bob Ross backs off entirely and just goes for the temple. That I would consider that a win based on how the start of the fight went. Or Bob Ross can try to push the issue to go back in and take out the keep. I think either of those are favorable for 2Ark if they move into this position. What we're going to see is that actually LZ Gamer goes for the, I'll say, slightly greedier position. He actually moves around the backside of this fort and is going to attempt to use the Mighty Gust to blow them in this direction. And this also has really two outcomes that can come from this as well. You push them into the keep and core, ideally, and you get the slow, you get the damage from the core to make up for the fact that some of your DPS is now dead, or your team gets punished very heavily for being in such a greedy position. So we'll go ahead and advance this really quick. We can see that there's some stuns that get thrown out as LZ moves to the other side and decides to take this very aggressive Gust position. Gets moved over, but the problem I think that ends up happening here is a little bit of communication. Insomnia looks at what he sees and maybe isn't ready for LZ to go forward, throw out this Gust. Ends up being in a forward position. If Sunshine is ready for that, he can absolutely, he still has all of his combo up. He can overpower somebody and then shadow charge them more or less into the core. And you can probably guarantee that one of those three heroes, Arthlon, if he gets tagged with it, grab this real quick. Arthlon, if he gets tagged, Mac, or Arrow, if any of those three get pushed from the Gust, then you can see this flip and gets pushed back, right? So that could be a way to set up to try to punish this. And I guess you guys sort of have to weigh in these types of situations. It's always hard to make these calls like on the spot. But we'll advance this really quick and kind of see what the punishment was. Insomnia probably losing way more health than he had hoped for. LZ does not have any movement, gets taken out, and it sort of gets punished for that. So this really kind of covers some of the positions and isolated views for 2Ark. We looked at their overarching goal. I think that the right call at the end for LZ there was to just disengage and try to have the team look for another position like that where they have the full wombo available to them. They'll have Wailing Arrow back up. They'll have Mosh Pit back up. You know, it was kind of a let me try to punish them for this, and I think in the heat of the moment ends up making the aggressive call that could have worked, but ends up really costing them quite a bit. And if you remember from the earlier part of this video, a couple other heroes get taken out. We'll see that McIntyre moves back in with the spear, lands it, gets more kills. They get the keep. They don't end the game right here. They're very close to being able to do so. If they had had their healer up instead of one of these other two, maybe. But they're just going to back up, take the temple. It will more or less take out this keep, and it puts 2Ark in a more or less an unwinnable position. Okay, we move back to the start of the replay one more time, and we're going to take a look at everything through the eyes of Bob Ross fan club and why they decided to move in this position to try and take out this keep. They see that the temple has just spawned. In 20 seconds they can move back to grab that if they want to, and they really want to try to take out this keep and then have the temple fire at the top keep. They're really just trying to min-max the advantage that they do have. Keep in mind, again, it's a 4-level lead right now, 3-level at times during the fight. But really, they have a lot of sieging capability. Arthlon, he's got the Hyperion. You can see the shadow of it is just, it's just popped. They have a lot of damage that they can throw out. And with this advantage, they understand that they're up against a wombo-oriented team. And if they can cancel just one aspect of the team, whether that be Trader, he's in this position, they don't know where he is right now, whether that be canceling or just dealing with the Wailing Arrow, just zoning that out, or really just trying to make sure that Sunshine isn't able to be in position for a good Lightning Breath, there'll be no damage to follow up on either part of the combo. So you'll see, we'll advance this just a little bit. Let me clear this out. We'll advance this replay just a little bit, and we'll see as they sort of group up. They realize that they're in position right now to get hit with this combo. They don't know where Trader is still, and from what they know, Trader could be sitting right here, and he could move in to land the Mosh Pit. He could be back here and could move in to land the Mosh Pit. He could be under here to move in and land the Mosh Pit. There's a lot of different angles that he could come from. And this is the easiest way for Bob Ross to deal with this combo style, which is really the only way they could lose the game at this point. Whether you think this is a risky push or not, it is sort of their style as a team. So they just need to make sure that they can cover this. And we'll advance this a little bit more because the position isn't so indicative of what they end up doing. And this is a little bit more closer to what we would expect to be a good position for them. And really what they need to make sure they do is they have Arrow here, and like they've swapped colors because I've changed the vision, but they have Arrow here who can cover the flank position, or not really a flank, but like the front on position if he moves in here. Or if he comes in from this backside. I think the Arrow is in a good spot to cancel that out. And with Arthlon being where he is, he knows he has Relentless Leader. If he can just block the power slide, just like wear it basically, soak up that shot, he's going to be able to mess up the positioning even if he's silenced. So I think if they can keep Arthlon in this back line to prevent this flank, Arrow covers the other two, it's really smart. So we'll go ahead and advance this position. But Arthlon knows, at least from this perspective, that that's really all they need to do. Keep that in the back line. Arrow sort of in this like top position to cover any sort of way that ETC can move in. And I didn't even really talk about the potential from him coming up here. But Arrow, especially with the Avatar, can cancel that out very easily. So we'll stop this here, and we'll pay a little bit more attention. Actually, we can advance it. We'll pay a little bit more attention to Arthlon, what he ends up doing in this fight, and he ends up using the penetrating round at this point, but he knows that he still has Relentless Leader. Goes in to position himself to make sure that he can knock back ETC. Gets knocked out. Doesn't get hit by that. He doesn't even need to use penetrating round, even if he had the extra shot, because there's no threat at that point. So he moves in. And he understands that there's very little. He still has his trade up. He puts himself in a very forward position at this point. Even though they know that Diablo is going to be coming back in, with his trait still up, he can almost act as like another tank for the team. Even with this, like this kind of looks like an aggressive spot for him to be. Like if Sunshine just sort of wraps around, I'll grab this. If Sunshine wraps around, flips him, throws him over this way, we talked about that, the potential for LZ to set that play up. That could be risky, but he knows that he can soak up a lot of damage. Kenma's still alive with very full HP, doesn't have his Divine Shield anymore. but could go a long way to keep him alive. I think it's very fine to just sort of maximize this position. He doesn't have Giant Killer, but he's still able to put out a huge amount of damage for the rest of the team. So that kind of, even though Raynor is a simple character, this kind of covers some of the decision-making that he made, at least in terms of the fine positioning, and especially the talent choices that he made with Relentless Leader. Alright, hopping back to the beginning, we're going to take a look at Arrow's position as the, I guess you can say, sole warrior for this team. And you have to always be juggling this difficult, you know, it's like a 50-50. What do you do? Do you go forward and aggress the position to try to lock down and initiate for your team? Or do you stay back and look to peel for your team to make sure that somebody doesn't get CC'd, you buy them enough time to escape, and force the enemy team to overextend? And a lot of that is you sort of do need to be able to classify your composition and the enemy's composition. And Arrow knows at this point, moving in, that wherever it is the 2-arc is sitting, that they have to land this particular combo. They have to be the aggressors in this case. And they know that a lot of firepower is going to be coming from this direction. He's going to actually hang back. And I think it's the right call based on what they're going up against. What do they really have to gain from trying to leap forward and try to isolate kills? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they know that if they can cancel out this combination, they can ride their level advantage to just sort of out-DPS the enemy team. So based on that, Arrow needs to put himself in a position where he can cover the most flanks, and that is absolutely right here. He wants to be able to cover this spot, he wants to cover this spot, and potentially this here, because any of those moving in to get a nice smosh would be devastating. He knows that just putting himself on the north side of the team is going to be favorable. And when we advance this, we can see he does exactly that to make sure he can isolate. He even takes out this wall to make sure that he can position himself just a little bit better up to this north side of the team. He's basically just waiting for ETC's position. At this point, we'll go ahead and pause it. This is where he has to make a snap call. What do I do that's beneficial for the team? And he knows that Trader is going to be moving in to get this combo. Crowan's going in to land this Wailing Arrow. And I think the snap call that he could make, knowing that he's going to get hit by this, is to activate Avatar as soon as possible. That at least will get you some CC on your auto attacks for the 2.5 seconds that you're silenced. When we advance, we can kind of see what the play is. He actually is able to dodge out of the way, but you can also see that his immediate gut reaction is to throw up that Avatar. He knows it's go time, the enemy team is moving in, and he sees that Crowan has isolated himself, which, when we go back to the earlier part of the video, which is why I wanted Crowan to really move backwards as much as possible. Move in this direction so that you can use Wailing Arrow and try to pull the enemy team away from the position. Force them to waste so many of their heroics with just the trade for your Wailing Arrow. Wasn't going to be the case here, but does decide to back up and just peel for the team. He knows that Zuna is in a bad position here, and any amount of CC from Trader could be pretty hurtful. So he's going to back up, make sure that he peels for the team. And really the thing that I want to highlight from this is that he makes that decision, he makes the right call, backing up to do that, making sure that he can keep his teammates safe in there. Crowan gets eliminated. Really good call. There's not really a whole lot else to talk about from a warrior's perspective in terms of decision making. He knows that he has the advantage here and can be in a very forward spot. I like that call. I think that makes a lot of sense as they move forward. And he's also doing a great job soaking up damage. He's wearing the shots from the keep at this point, putting himself in a spot where he can maybe throw down some CC, is able to go up and allow the team to take out LZ Gamer with the great Stormbolt. All these things are good. Almost dies here, but the tower ends up running out of ammo. Overall, really good play from Arrow. I think it's really smart. A good warrior player will always have the foresight to identify the team's goals beforehand and really make the right call between initiating and backing up to peel for the team. Alright, back into the start of the replay one more time from Bob Ross's perspective. We're going to actually take a look at McIntyre's role in this team fight and what he wants to be accomplishing. Now, Max on Sonya, so that puts him kind of into this bruiser / melee assassin style. Sonya can put out a lot of damage, and also when the Wrath of the Berserker is active, which is honestly for the majority of this fight, he has the Relentless attached to with that heroic, so he's going to be able to soak up CCs a lot easier and sort of be in more precarious positions. So Mac's going to be looking to be in the front line. He's going to look to put pressure on some of the squishier targets without really putting himself in too much danger. He can be the source of the Divine Shield, but the Whirlwind isn't really doing so much damage that you need to like dodge CCs on it. I think it's going to be better to save other targets in the backline, especially with the potential aggressive nature from what 2Arc has to offer. So looking forward, it's just going to be paying attention to Mac and see kind of where his sight is shifting based on the options that are available to him. So we'll go ahead and advance this really quick. And first part of this fight is he immediately is going to see LZ Gamer. And the reason he goes for him is squishiest target, not necessarily the least likely to get away with barrel roll, but if you can bait that out early on in the fight, it's going to limit his ability to position. Whereas going after someone like Insomnia, he has the Wolf to continue to move around. That's not going anywhere even if you hit him. And it's not really going to do a lot to affect his position in terms of dealing with the Ancestral Healing, which is what's going to allow Sunshine to really get into position. So he makes the decision to immediately go for LZ Gamer, barring the lack of any other available options. He can see Sylvanas on his mini-map is to the north, but that's so far out of the way that it doesn't make any sense for him to try to move up to that position to stop the flank. And as we move forward, you're going to see that McIntyre actually isn't really the initiator or mini-initiator for the team. He's following Arrow's lead because Sonya really doesn't have a huge amount of CC available to her, but really relies on the warrior to like basically present you a target that makes sense to throw your DPS onto. So when we advance this, we'll be able to sort of track how McIntyre is shifting his targets based on what's available to him and where Arrow is in position with the rest of it. So he's throwing some pressure onto LZ, trying to get as much damage onto him, trying to get that barrel roll out. Doesn't end up happening just through the heals. But then he immediately sees Diablo is in a position where the rest of the team has made the call. All right, throw everything onto Diablo. It makes the most sense. Now, a couple things happen. We see the Ancestrals being thrown down. He can, as soon as he sees that green light, he says, okay, we're not going to get this takedown right now. And he also now sees Crowan moving in just through the peripherals, and he knows that this Wailing Arrow is coming in, and it's going to do a lot to inhibit his mobility, whether he has Spear up or not. So you can see as soon as he sees this green and Crowan move in, it's time to get out of there, it's time to back up. And he immediately moves backwards. As soon as he sees that, he does get silenced, but is able to get out of the way for the rest of the combo. Throws down some damage onto Crowan to secure the kill. And now he's really just following Arrow's lead, so just pay attention to the rest of the team, or to where McIntyre's moving based on Arrow's position. Yeah, you can see he moves in, trying to secure this kill. Trader ends up going down. McIntyre didn't have too much play in that. Again, he moves back onto LZ Gamer to force out that barrel roll, and he immediately starts to set his sights onto LZ Gamer. Gets pushed away from the gust, but Arrow moves in, and they're able to get a couple more kills thanks to the spear landing. Everything is good, but it's really the thing to highlight with McIntyre's play is the shift of the targets based on what he sees, what is a priority, and what you can bait out, which is why playing melee assassins are so hard in Heroes of the Storm to always make the right call. If you make one of those calls wrong at any other point in the team fight, you've now overextended and you're dead and you just kind of look like the feeder person for your team. You don't want any of that, but you always want to be able to apply that scary pressure. And you know, a lot of that is thanks to Arrow picking the right targets and McIntyre appropriately following up on them, and also him safely throwing damage out to bait out some abilities. And we'll probably talk quite a bit more about melee assassins. If I see a fight, you know, over the coming weeks tournaments that has a melee assassin in particular, if I can catch like an Illidan or a Thrall or something like that, we can really just sort of highlight Thrall or Illidan play where it's like, when do you go in and when do you back off? And that is a very, very difficult thing to talk about. I think this will wrap up the majority of this fight, though, what I wanted to cover. Again, there's a lot of really cool stuff, decision-making on either side and how they wanted to set it up, and to see some of the counterplay, and also some of the decisions that could have been available to either side had they been aware or were able to make the snap calls to provide that type of counterplay. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully I'll be back soon with another replay we can sort of dive into. Until then, see you guys later.